Would you support reinstituting laws in this country to only allow white people to vote?
Senator, I'm going to serve as ambassador to South Africa, and I'm going to focus on that.
You will not share your personal views on whether it is right or wrong to reinstitute discriminatory policies in this country to prevent black people from voting?
Senator, my personal views are irrelevant. I am serving here to do what the president is asking me to do in South Africa.
Do you support having a refugee admissions policy in this country that only admits white refugees?
Senator, I don't make that policy.
Mr. Bazell, I wanted to give you a second chance to answer a question that Senator Van Hollen put to you. I don't want to litigate the specific question of the persecution of the Afrikaner people. That's a policy that the administration has announced that I understand you will support. But Senator Van Hollen asked you a really simple question, like a layup question, and it is concerning to me that you couldn't give an easy, straight answer. He asked you, should we have a race-based refugee admissions policy as a nation? In other words, do you support having a refugee admissions policy that admits white refugees only? So let me ask you that question again. I don't want to get into the specifics of the Afrikaner issue. Do you support having a refugee admissions policy in this country that only admits white refugees?
Senator, I don't make that policy.
Well, but it's really important. But I think this is if I were to ask this question of virtually any nominee to be an ambassador prior to this panel, that would be an easy layup answer. No, of course, we don't support having a refugee policy where we only admit white people. So why can't you give me your personal view on that?
Because, Senator, I am here to serve America and to do what the president is asking me to do. I'll be following the executive order of February.
Would you support reinstituting laws in this country to only allow white people to vote?
Senator, I'm going to serve as ambassador to South Africa, and I'm going to focus on that.
You will not share your personal views on whether it is right or wrong to reinstitute discriminatory policies in this country to prevent black people from voting?
Senator, my personal views are irrelevant. I am serving here to do what the president is asking me to do in South Africa.
Well, that's just simply not true. The whole reason that you're appearing before this committee is because your personal views, your history is absolutely relevant to your fitness to serve. We wouldn't have this process if your personal views were not relevant. That is pretty stunning that you will not share your views not only on whether we should have a refugee admissions process that is race-based, but you won't share your personal views on whether we should reimpose discriminatory treatment against black Americans. That is absolutely relevant to your qualifications to serve, and your refusal to answer it, I hope, is something that every member of this committee will think about. Mr. Ghalib, I don't think you are qualified to serve in this role, and I think that you have dug your hole deeper today. In response to Senator McCormick's pretty simple question, you refused to support maintaining Israel as a home for the Jewish people. I just don't know how we send an ambassador to the Middle East that doesn't support protecting Israel as a home for the Jewish people. I also just want to make sure that you're being, well, I mean, Senator McCormick asked, you can answer it again, but Senator McCormick asked you that question 3 different times, and you had ample opportunity to state that you believe that Israel should be protected as a home for the Jewish people.
Can I clarify that now?
I mean, I think it's pretty important to understand your views on this. It's pretty stunning that you weren't able to answer that question 3 times when asked by Senator McCormick.
Well, I supported the president's plan, which means that there would be a solution.
It doesn't matter to me whether you support the president's plan. Again, this idea that your personal views don't matter is ridiculous. Do you believe that Israel should be protected as a home for the Jewish people?
I believe that, and I believe it can be a home for the Jewish and the Arabs and the Muslims and the Christian as well. And that's why it's a diverse land for the 3 major religions. I think they can coexist, all the nations in the Middle East, based on the peace plan of President Trump that I support strongly.
I just want to ask you to present something to the committee. You've been asked questions today about your refusal to condemn this outrageous statement by a member of your city government. The statement, again, is the Holocaust was God's advanced punishment of the chosen people for the savagery that they've committed against the innocent Palestinian children and civilians. You were asked to comment on this. You refused to comment on it. I think that's disqualifying in and of itself. But in earlier questioning, you said that you did condemn it at the time. We have seen no evidence of that.
Senator,
So is there evidence that you condemned that at the time?
I did tell the media that I don't agree with them and I condemn. They were concerned about
And
disciplining.
there's evidence of that? You could present this committee with those media reports?
I would, and I say it now, let me be clear. I condemn that and I disagree with them. Their concerns was to why didn't I fire him? He's a volunteer in the planning commission.
I'm simply asking you, we have not seen any evidence that you publicly condemned that post. If you have claimed that you did in a public way. So
I did disagree
I'm simply
with him.
asking you to submit that information for the record because we've not seen that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
What we just witnessed in that hearing wasn't simply a tense political exchange, it was a moral test. A test of values, of character, and of the meaning of public service in today's America. When Senator Chris Murphy asked that Trump nominee whether he would support a refugee policy that only admits white people, or whether he would back laws that allow only white people to vote, he wasn't asking a trick question. He was asking a question that goes straight to the soul of this country. Because you see, there are some questions that should never require hesitation. Some truths that should be so deeply ingrained in the heart of anyone serving this nation that they don't need to look to the White House for permission to speak them. The answer should have been immediate, clear, and firm. No, absolutely not. America does not and should never stand for racial discrimination in any form. That should have been an easy answer, but it wasn't. The nominee refused to answer directly. He hid behind the excuse that he's just there to serve the president. But here's the danger in that response. It's the erosion of moral independence. Public servants are not supposed to be puppets of political leaders. They are meant to serve the Constitution, not the ego of any president. And when someone seeking to represent the United States abroad can't even say that racist policies are wrong, it tells you just how deep political loyalty has replaced moral integrity in parts of our government. This isn't just about one man's silence. It's about what that silence represents. It represents the normalization of moral ambiguity. It represents how far Trumpism has gone in conditioning people to avoid simple truths if those truths might offend their political base. It's about how fear of falling out of favor with a political movement can make even the most obvious moral stance feel like a risk. And when silence becomes easier than honesty, democracy begins to rot from within. Think about the symbolism here. This man wasn't just being questioned for any office. He was nominated to be an ambassador. An ambassador's duty is to embody America's values, to speak for our principles, to represent the moral and democratic foundation that this country was built upon. When an ambassador cannot articulate that racial discrimination is wrong, what message does that send to the world? What does that say to the nations still fighting for equality and human rights when America itself hesitates to denounce racism outright? Senator Murphy's frustration was not just political, it was moral. He was holding up a mirror to show how far we've drifted from the values that define us. The nominee's refusal to answer wasn't just a bureaucratic dodge, it was an ethical failure. Because the truth is, neutrality in the face of racism isn't neutrality at all, it's complicity. You cannot claim to serve the Constitution while dodging its most basic principle, equality under the law. And this hearing revealed something deeper about where we are as a nation. We've entered a time when some people believe that loyalty to one man outweighs loyalty to country, when basic questions about fairness, equality, and humanity have become partisan. That is not just dangerous, it's unsustainable for any democracy. Because democracies don't die overnight. They die slowly, when silence replaces courage, when compromise replaces conviction, and when power becomes more important than principle. This is why these hearings matter. It's not about political theater. It's about accountability. It's about showing the American people who's willing to stand up for our shared values and who's willing to trade them away for a title. Senator Murphy wasn't just questioning a nominee. He was defending the very idea that moral clarity should never depend on political affiliation, that some things, truth, equality, justice, are not up for debate. And when someone nominated to speak for America can't even affirm those things, it's a warning sign for all of us. If there's one thing viewers should take away from this exchange, it's this: silence is not harmless. Every time a public official refuses to speak up against injustice, it creates space for that injustice to grow. Every time a leader values loyalty over honesty, it chips away at the foundation of democracy. And every time we, the public, stop demanding clarity, we allow moral confusion to take root. So yes, Senator Murphy's questions were simple, but their implications were profound. They asked us to consider what kind of America we are willing to be. Are we a nation that hides behind political excuses when asked to defend equality? Or are we a nation that speaks the truth, even when it's uncomfortable? This is why civic engagement matters. This is why elections matter. Because the people we choose to lead us shape not just our policies, but our principles,